and Donald Trump. And then his national security advisor, Susan Rice, writes a memo, backtimes it, to cover their tail on what they're doing. And by the way, the media is not interested in one word of this. House Judiciary Committee is not interested in one word of this. So how is it possible Obama didn't know most of this?
Well, it's not. It's utterly absurd, ridiculous, outlandish, outrageous. I mean, I run out of modifiers to describe how stupid the idea that Barack Obama didn't know while he was president that you were investigating the Republican nominee for colluding with the Russians to overthrow the results of a U.S. election. Putting the ridiculousness of that aside for a minute, because, you know, unlike liberals, we produce evidence. We're not allergic to facts on your show like they are. I laid out before to you, there are texts, there are transmissions. The White House wants to know everything we're doing. Right around the time they opened the case, what do you think they were talking about? Playing tiddlywinks? The White House wants to know everything we're doing, talking about their baking recipes. And then you have the other one. POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Oh, the White House is running this is another one. Then we have meetings at the White House in the October-September period with John Brennan's deputy. At the White House, we have emails between Andy McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI, and his lead lawyer, Lisa Page, talking about how they're going to coordinate their story with this deputy director of the CIA for this White House meeting on this case. Again, what do you think they were talking about there, Mark? Again, none of this is cryptic. They're not special emails I was given privy to. This is out there. Now, we put it together in the book.
It's in your new book.
It's in the book, and you'll see all the evidence that the White House was running this. But I think the final point on this is one that Andy McCarthy has made before as well. Mark, the sole purpose of counterintelligence investigations at this level is to inform the president on intel matters. They are not criminal investigations or criminal probes. Are you seriously telling me that an investigation designed to inform the president was kept from the president because it was Donald Trump, the Republican nominee?
And why would they keep it from?
They wouldn't. But can I make one more point? Because you brought up the Susan Rice email, which you brought in January, the famous January Susan Rice email to herself, where we said President Obama said to do everything by the book. You know, there's a terrible movie, G.I. Jane, but there's a quote in the movie that's really funny, where the commander of the base says to her, people who don't want to make statements don't make statements about not making statements. You don't make a statement, Barack Obama said to do everything by the book, if you're not making a statement. In other words, that he wasn't doing everything by the book. Have you ever sent an email to yourself and said, Mark Levin, tell Mark Levin to do everything by the book? It's so ridiculous.
Let me ask you a question. With this Nadler now running this Soviet-style investigation where he's already announced the president's committed crimes, I don't believe the president, he's obstructed justice, he's done, but we're going to do an investigation. If that's not Stalinistic, I don't know what is. He's an embarrassment. What he's doing to the House is an embarrassment. But he wants to get to the bottom of all this. Has he called Susan Rice as a witness ever?
No.
Has he called James Comey as a witness ever?
Scot-free.
Has he called McCabe as a witness ever?
Nope.
Baker, Stroke, Page.
In the wind.
How about Sally Yates, the former acting Attorney General of the United States who helped set up General Flynn?
That's right.
Did you call him?
No.
How about Joe Biden, who was Vice President of the United States? We're told the most active Vice President of the United States in American history, even more than John Adams, I guess. Has he been called to testify?
No.
How about Barack Obama? Has he been called to testify? How about any of their documents? Any subpoenas for their documents from Elijah Cummings or anybody like that?
Obama's making movies on Netflix.
Obama's making movies on Netflix. So nothing.
Nope.
So they don't want to get to the bottom of anything.
No, and interestingly enough, Joe Biden, the Washington Post themselves have reported on Joe Biden going to Ukraine and his son getting this big job in Ukraine right after he conveniently leaves, while Democratic operatives are working with key Ukrainians to target Trump. Nothing to see there, Mark. Don't you? I thought we cared about foreign collusion. Well, the real answer is we only care about foreign collusion when it doesn't involve Democrats. And on the Nadler front, are you seriously telling me Jerry Nadler, one of the weakest members of Congress, a failed politician at every level, Jerry Nadler, is going to manage to uncover on Donald Trump with the FBI, the CIA, the Southern District of New York, the District of Washington, the Eastern District of Virginia, basically the entire upper level of our intel and law enforcement community couldn't find. No, Mark, Jerry Nadler is going to get to the bottom of it. He's definitely going to be the one who finds it.
You know, when we get back, I want to ask you about this guy Steele.
Yeah.
In his collusion with the Russians. Because you point that out in your new book. But before we do that, you raise a very, very interesting point. So here we have this phony impeachment investigation. And I want the American people to understand the way this is supposed to work is the entire House of Representatives votes on whether or not to pursue an impeachment inquiry. A single committee of the House, which is populated by every left-wing kook imaginable, is not supposed to be driving this. Right. This is nothing more, and I said it months ago, but I want to reiterate this. On the taxpayer dime, the Democrat Party has hijacked the House of Representatives using staff and our dollars to conduct opposition research to try and defeat the President of the United States in 2020. Working with the Attorney General in New York on tax returns, working with Vance Jr., the DA in Manhattan, working on tax returns. Mm-hmm. Their conduct is diabolical, and they're undermining the Constitution, and they're distracting the American people. We have all these challenges in front of us. I just wanted to make that point. But when we come back, I want to address this Steele issue, this Christopher Steele, this former British spy. And who exactly is it, truly, who was colluding with the Russians? We'll be right back. You know, Dan Bongino, this guy Christopher Steele, still kind of a mystery to the American people. Guy's a foreign ex-spy. You talk about getting involved in our politics. Yeah. This guy was involved in our politics more than Obama. And Obama was involved in trying to change the outcome of this campaign more than anybody else, as far as I'm concerned, his government was. He's a seedy character. And yet he is a useful tool. Yes. For people at the FBI, for the Hillary Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, all these people and entities. But in your book, you explain this isn't his first act, is it?
No. And the question also, as you just accurately stated, is why was he a useful tool? Why did the FBI need Steele? Now, if we go back to the beginning of the show and we discussed the movie script, remember, they have to fabricate charges against Trump, which becomes the dossier. That movie script, it's made up. It's a fabricated fairy tale, the dossier, about Donald Trump and these sexual episodes, these gross stories. It's all, Mark, it's all made up. Where does Steele fit into this puzzle, and why do they need Steele? I believe calling it the Steele dossier is a huge mistake that plays into the hands of the left. And there's a reason they call it the Steele dossier. It's not the Steele dossier. It's the Simpson, Jacoby, Fusion GPS, Steele dossier. They need to put someone's name on it, this fake movie script story they have, to sell it to the FBI. It can't be Glenn Simpson's name. He was a reporter who's being paid by Hillary Clinton. So they must be sitting around a room and saying, okay, well, if Glenn Simpson walks us into the FBI, someone's going to see right through this and say, well, let me get this straight. A former journalist working for Hillary produces this movie script about Donald Trump being this evil colluder with Putin. I don't believe it. Someone says, light bulb moment, eureka, I got an idea. We used to work with this credible source, because he had been credible in the past, Steele. When you do facts here, he had produced information for the FBI in the FIFA case, the soccer scandal, and it was credible. Now, as you know, being a lawyer yourself, having worked in the Department of Justice, me having been an agent, there's nothing more valuable than a source that's appeared in court before, whereas his information has been used credibly. He doesn't have to go through the exact same verification as a news source. Someone probably said, hey, you know what, this guy Steele would be great. He worked for us before. What if we slapped the movie script information on a dossier, put Steele's name on it, hey, look what I've got, and then we give it to the FBI and they say, oh, this guy Steele is wonderful. What's interesting about that, too, is there were some reports about Glenn Simpson's wife, Mary Jacoby, who wrote a Facebook post, again, this is in the book, that got taken down, where it seems she was upset that Steele was getting credit for the movie script fairy tale dossier.
And not her husband?
And not her husband. And she deletes the post later on where she says, hey, I just want everybody to know, basically, my husband Glenn is the one who took Trump down. And she deletes it later on because she can't have that. It's got to be the Steele dossier.
Now, Steele, you explained, more than a decade ago, was colluding with the Russians. Explain that.
When Steele, right before the signing of the first FISA warrant in October of 2016, Christopher Steele makes a critical mistake. He goes in and he speaks with Kathleen Kavalek of the State Department, the Obama State Department. And Kavalek, who I don't think is a hero in this case, but is suspicious of Steele's information. Remember, this is all fake. This dossier is made up. The Carter Page charges, the nasty stuff.
So he's trying to push it out wherever he can.
Everywhere.
And he goes to state.
If you're a football fan, he's doing the flood the zone strategy. If he sends the information to 100 different places, someone's going to believe it. So he goes to the State Department. This is a critical mistake because he meets a skeptic. Again, I'm not painting her out to be a hero, but I don't think she wants to be embarrassed either. She takes notes. Big mistake on her meeting with Steele. Remember, this is before the FBI swears the Steele dossier, which is fake, is real. Before. A couple of things pop out. Number one, unbelievably, Steele tells Kavalek, as she indicates in a note, the note literally says, sources. She's interviewing Steele, referencing his sources. It says Trebnikov and Surkov. You have to look because her writing's awful. Trebnikov and Surkov.
Sounds Russian.
You would be correct. Ding, ding, ding. I read this. It took me a couple days to read. I started doing my homework. Trebnikov is a former upper-level Russian intelligence official who, ironically, runs with this network of people that knows Stefan Halper, the spy who spied on the Trump team. It gets better. The second source, she indicates in her notes from Steele's own meeting, is a guy named Surkov, who writes a piece. It's covered by Newsweek, this Newsweek article. He writes a piece talking about how we own you, the Russians, we own you in America, we get into your minds, we corrupt your process. This guy Surkov actually wrote that. And he's heavily involved with Putin and heavily involved in this Russian industrial project that Hillary Clinton, the Skolkovo project, some of the people in this project donated to the Clinton Foundation, and Hillary actually pushed this program to American companies.
So what is Steele doing with these two Russians?
Steele's indicating to Kavalek in some way that now, are they his direct sources? That's an open question. Are they secondary, tertiary? We don't know. In other words, is someone feeding it to someone who's feeding it to him? That we're not sure of. But what we are sure of is he undoubtedly told Kathleen Kavalek in a written note that the guy who put together the fake dossier against Trump was using Putin-connected Russians to get the information. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait, I thought that's what Trump was doing. No, that's what Steele was doing. It's on paper.
So the accusers were working wittingly or unwittingly, directly or indirectly, with Putin and the Russians. And the victim,
undeniable.
the President of the United States, is the one who's investigated. And now they want to impeach him. Does it get any sicker than this? We'll be right back. The book is called Exonerated. It comes out really in a few days.
Yep.
You can get on Amazon.com. It is a fascinating book. And
Thank you.
What I like about it is it's clear. It's in plain English. And you're able to follow the points. And you have a chapter, a very significant chapter, given the timing, on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And his collusion with the Ukrainian government, which, again, the media don't want to touch, but you hammer it. Explain.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating that I wrote this whole story about how Trump allegedly colluded with the Russians when, in fact, the Democrats were colluding with the Russians. And then at the end, I thought, you know who's escaped scrutiny in this whole thing? Biden. Now, Joe Biden, back in April, I believe it was 2014, takes a trip to Ukraine. After he leaves Ukraine, because he's the point man in the region, his son gets this lucrative contract to be a consultant with a natural gas company in Ukraine called Burisma. Mark.
Well, that's two strikes. That's natural gas, which I thought they wanted to get rid of.
Right.
And then a special deal for his son, because his son really wasn't qualified to do any of that.
No experience whatsoever in the natural gas arena. Now, this is above and beyond all his conflicts with China and other stuff, this son. This is specifically Ukraine. Why does Ukraine matter, though? So again, Biden goes there right after that. And then the company winds up being investigated by the prosecutor general in Ukraine. What's fascinating is Biden's actually on tape. Biden is like the Teddy Ruxpin of gaffes. I mean, you stick a quarter in this guy, he makes a gaffe every time. It's just unfathomable how he can't keep his mouth shut. Biden is actually on tape. Anyone can look at it on YouTube. On tape suggesting that the prosecutor general investigating the entire operation around the company that hired his son, he says, I want this guy fired and I'm not leaving the country. He's on tape until this guy's fired. Now,
meaning the prosecutor.
The prosecutor's investigating the whole operation.
Does he get him fired?
He gets fired, which is amazing. It's on tape. Again, no one in the media outside of conservative outlets.
This hasn't come up in any debate.
No, and it won't, because the media covers for Biden. Old lunch bucket Joe. Listen,
never held a lunch bucket in his life.
Never. He's a corruptocrat like all these other guys out there, which is really shameful. But what's really fascinating is why does that Ukrainian thing matter, and how does it tie into the book, the Exonerated case, and the Mueller story? Mark, Ukrainians, key Ukrainian political officials, We're feeding information to Democrat operatives about